LeBron James leaving the Cavaliers had most people predicting that the Cavs were going to be absolutely terrible for a long time. They thought that the Cleveland would trade Kevin Love and head to the deep depths of tanking for a few years before they could be relevant again. Instead, Cleveland has doubled down on Kevin Love and maintained that they can make the playoffs this coming season. This video will take a look at Cleveland's future this season and beyond, as well as examining whether or not Kevin Love can recapture his form from Minnesota. And let's start with that last question. The Kevin Love mystery this season is one of the most underrated storylines in the entire league. In his 4 seasons with Cleveland, he averaged 17 points and 10 rebounds a game while shooting 38% from deep, making him one of the most consistent stretch fours in the entire league. But just the season before he arrived in Cleveland, Love averaged 26 points, 12 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. This was one of the greatest seasons a power forward had ever played, and Love was one of the most dominant players in the league. But when he got traded to the Cavaliers, he quickly became the third option on the team and was basically relegated to being a spot-up shooter who was tasked with rebounding and setting screens for LeBron and Kyrie. And Love was an exceptional teammate in this regard. He did everything he was asked to do, shoot the 3-ball very well, and sacrificed a huge amount of his own personal game for the team's success. And this ultimately helped lead the Cavaliers to a championship in 2016. Now, Kyrie and LeBron are both gone, and Love has the opportunity to solidify his status as one of the greatest Cavs ever. He signed an extension that will have him in Cleveland for the next 5 years, unless they decide to trade him. The Cavaliers have essentially committed to trying to build a team around him that can compete for and in the playoffs. But is this possible? Kevin never made the playoffs out west, and it was part of the reason why the Timberwolves eventually agreed to trade him for Wiggins and their own rebuild. Part of this was because the West was just so damn tough during this period, and making the playoffs was far more difficult in the West. The other reason was that injuries seemed to plague the Timberwolves like no tomorrow. Ricky Rubio and Pekovic missed a large number of games for long stretches with injuries, and the Timberwolves never really managed to put together a solid team around their young star. And while no one is going to say that this current cast in Cleveland is amazing, it is solid. And the Eastern Conference is far, far easier to make the playoffs in than the Western one. The other factor is that Love has lost a fair bit of weight and therefore should hopefully suffer less stress injuries surrounding his weight. While he did play only 60 games the last 2 seasons, a lot of these issues were small or had to do with concussion, which hopefully never afflicts Love again. If he can play around 75 plus games this season, I think it will be a fantastic result and should put the Cavaliers in a position where they could potentially make the playoffs. But this isn't going to happen with the Kevin Love who averages 17 and 10. They need the absolute monster scoring Kevin who can pour in 24 points a game, grab boards and dish assists. And I think they might get him, for a few reasons. First, Love will be out to prove something this season, just like Chris Bosh did in his first year after LeBron left. He will want to show the world that he can be a number 1 option and carry a team to victories with his threes, rebounds and bullying people in the post. And he will. In his first preseason game, Love looked phenomenal, dropping 17 points against the Celtics in the first half alone, and doing this with a wide range of moves. They dumped the ball to him in the post and let him go to work. Here, he moved exceptionally quickly and drew a lot of fouls, but he also hit up and unders and was able to nail a few half hooks and had the confidence to shoot jumpers over his defender from the mid-range. I've seen a lot of people say that Love won't be able to regain the form he had in the post in Minnesota. A lot of these critics say it is because Love has slimmed down and doesn't have the same weight to throw around and bully his defender. And while it is true that he has lost weight, the entire league has. Back when Kevin was dominating down low, he was guarded by much bigger players, guys who also had weight. And skinny Love wouldn't have been able to score as effectively on them. But now, the entire league has downsized at the 4 and 5 position. The guys that are guarding Love won't be as big as they were from 2012 to 2014. And Love still has a lot of his natural strength anyway, which allows him to back down effectively and push his way to the rim. Plus, the loss of weight actually makes him faster down low, which makes guarding him even harder than when he was that little bit slower. His one dribble move into the paint for a hook shot is lethal, and I expect him to make a lot of them this year. The last 2 seasons, the Cavaliers would give Love the ball in the post 4 or 5 times in the first quarter to try and get him going. But then, in the second, third, or last quarters, they would basically never give him the ball down low. He was once again relegated to the perimeter to drain threes, and the difference in his activity and effect was noticeable. This is true for a lot of big men. The big fellas have to lug their body up the court, defend big guys, and rebound like crazy. You need to reward them when they do so in order to encourage them to keep the effort up. Skilled bigs will get infuriated and lose concentration when they aren't rewarded properly. Now Love wasn't this bad, he still tried his heart out all game, but his entire game seems to lift so much when the team allows him to get into rhythm. He seems to hit multiple shots in the post in a row, drain threes, and just get a lot more efficient when his team is feeding him the ball. And now that LeBron and Kyrie are both gone, I think the Cavs will be looking to feed Love every single minute he is on the court. While Cleveland has some solid role players and other guys, they simply don't have anyone else who is close to Kevin's level in terms of isolation play and the ability to score and create for themselves. For this reason, their guards will look for Love in pick and rolls and pick and pops, and will be wanting to dump him the ball in the post. And there's no denying that the post is probably going to become a central point for this Cleveland offense. They will still play some pick and roll, but the post allows them to run cutters hard around Kevin Love and utilize the gravity he creates. And their roster is packed with players who will be able to benefit from this. The two big guys who will likely share the court with Love are Tristan Thompson and Larry Nance Jr. Both of these guys like to sit in the slot and wait for the offensive rebound instead of hanging around the perimeter. This means that if that player comes over to double Kevin, he can either dump it off or shoot it anyway. If he does shoot and happens to miss, both of them will be a great chance to gobble up the rebound and get the second chance points. Then, if they happen to double from the perimeter, Kevin can kick it out to George Hill, Rodney Hood, Chetty Osman, J.R. Smith, and Jordan Clarkson, all of who can drain threes. While none of these players are world-beating teammates who could help LeBron to a championship, they are still capable players. And there is a big difference between the teammates required to win a championship and the teammates required to make it to the 8th seed in the East. These guys will give Love the space he needs to not get cramped in the post and the paint, and give him great options to rack up assists with his smart passing. And to be honest, he will have a lot more space in the paint than he did in his last season in Minnesota. There, his spacing was cramped by Rubio, Pekovic, Corey Brewer, and a bunch of other players who couldn't shoot the three ball at a super high clip. With good coaching, this won't happen this season, and every single part of the strategy will go towards maximizing Love's efficiency. Depending on how fast-paced an offense they play, I could see Kevin averaging over 24 points, over 11 rebounds, and around 3.5 assists. If he can do this while shooting nearly 40% from deep, he'll be one of the best players in the East and will definitely be an all-star. But is it enough for Cleveland to make the playoffs? The first problem is going to be defense. Kevin struggled at times over the last 4 years to make an impact defensively outside of grabbing rebounds and ending possessions. But he was being asked to play the center position and guard a lot of bigger guys. This was because in order to maximize the efficiency of LeBron, you needed to play smaller with shooters, and so Love had to be the one protecting the rim. And the defense suffered. This isn't his skill set. Now, with LeBron gone, I think the Cavaliers will spend most of Love's time on the court with another big guy in Thompson or Nance. These two will be tasked with protecting the rim and guarding the bigger centers. This will allow Love to focus on guarding his own player and not worrying about helping as much, and instead focusing on grabbing the rebound, his specialty. Now, this isn't going to make Cleveland a great defensive team. They'll probably still be bad or average at best on this end, but it will hopefully stop them from being abhorrent. The question will really be, how good can they be on the other end? And can they be better than the rest of the East? The teams that I have locked into the playoffs in the East are Boston, Toronto, Philadelphia, the Bucks, the Wizards, and the Pacers. This leaves two spots that will likely be in contention. The teams that I have having a shot at these are the Cavaliers, the Pistons, Charlotte, and the Heat. If the Heat manage to get Jimmy Butler, then I would lock them in for that 7th spot. But for now, the Cavaliers really need to beat out 2 of those 3 teams, as well as the potential wildcards in the Bulls and the Knicks, although I highly doubt either of those teams will actually make it this year. So is it possible for Cleveland to make it? Hell yeah it is. But while a huge amount of it will rest on Kevin Love being a dominant force, an almost bigger amount rests on a few of the younger guys making a jump. Can Colin Sexton be a force and take the starting point guard spot from George Hill? Will Rodney Hood finally capitalize on his potential? And can Jordan Clarkson go back to being the off-the-bounce bench scorer that he was in LA? I think they all probably can, and will make these jumps without the pressure of LeBron being there. This is a team that should win 35 games, and if they can scrape into the 41 plus range, they could make the playoffs in the East. But what about the future? With Kevin Love on the books, they won't be able to tank and achieve good draft picks, but they don't have the cap flexibility to go out and sign big free agent players in order to build a truly winning team around him. This is a real problem, and the Cavaliers are at risk of running on the treadmill of mediocrity. This treadmill is when a team is in that draft range of about 15 to 20 but can't manage to win a playoff series. They keep having the same results over and over again and aren't going to win a ring by adding a player in the 15 to 20 range every draft. If they want to avoid this, they'll have to trade Love for picks, clear cap space, and absorb bad contracts for picks, and do a lot of losing. But Kevin is 30, and on a 5-year huge contract. It could be difficult to trade him and get decent value. The Cavaliers might be hoping that they can feature Love and have him blossom into a dominant player once again, and then have a team make a big trade for him to put them over the top. If they pull this off, hats off to them. But I'm just extremely excited to see Love back as a #1 option. He should dominate this season and prove everyone who doubted him during the LeBron era wrong. So let's just hope for one thing in Cleveland this season. Love in the air. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. And let me know in the comments below what you think of Love and the Cavaliers.